Hi, Kerry. Thank you very much for telling us what you think of STEMReader. It's really great for you to chat today. I was wondering if you could just introduce yourself and tell us what you do.
Okay, well, my name is Kerry Pace and I founded a company called Diverse Learners. And what's quite interesting about that is that we support students all over the country from many different universities, including the Open University, on lots of different courses. And they come to us for support. Usually they've got quite complex profiles as well, because normally the support at the universities isn't accessible to them. So we have a lot of nursing students, teachers, we have engineers, we have business people, we have psychologists, we have PhD people, we have all sorts in our diverse learners.
And what sort of problems do they have relating to maths in particular?
Well, I think if I talk about the nursing students first and the healthcare students first, because that is our specialist area, that's where our expertise is. A lot of student nurses and healthcare students aren't necessarily maths specialists when they go onto their course, and really fundamentally often have had to do their maths 2 or 3 times in order to meet the minimum requirement to get onto the course. So you're talking about people who aren't maths competent, and you're talking about people who have the possibility of delivering drugs that can kill people. So you have people there who are in very, very intensive, highly pressured workplace situations where they have to make quick decisions and life-threatening decisions. We also have students who are engineers, and I don't understand a word they're doing. You know, they present me, say, these are the equations I have to do, but that doesn't matter because some of the strategies we have to use for understanding maths are exactly the same whether they're an engineering student or whether they're a nursing student or a psychology student.
So what sort of strategies do you develop with them, and how do you use the current technology with them?
Well, it depends on how complicated the maths is, for a start. So there's no point putting any of the current reading technology like Claro or Text Help or anything like that on the engineering students, for example, because it just won't happen. And often they have good mathematical knowledge, but it's their explaining it that it's the trouble for them. So often that's a very useful tool that they like to explain the equations to me because I'm a non-math specialist, and if they can explain it to me then they're all right. They'll be able to get their marks from their assessment, or in the workplace they'll be able to talk in the correct terminology and vocabulary for maths. So I think...
So would text-to-speech help with that explanation process?
Well, the current stuff that's out there doesn't. So the vocabulary that they have to remember themselves. So we do a lot of glossary sheets, for example, and we make sure that the word is in their own right, that is their own understanding of the meaning rather than a dictionary definition. So they understand, although they're saying a very complicated mathematical language, they actually in their head, they're saying something quite simple and how they understand it. We do a lot of highlighting. So, for example, different parts of the mathematical equation we will highlight in different colours. Particularly for the nurses when it's times in 10, dividing by 10, times it by 100, dividing by 100, and the different grams and micrograms and micrograms that you need for nursing. Now, that transposition of the decimal point for a non-specialist maths person who isn't confident in maths is often very difficult for them to understand. So we do lots of colour, we do lots of symbols where we move things up and down a sliding scale and we jump things over, and they have little sort of mnemonics in their head on how to remember it. So there's a lot of different multi-sensory techniques that we use in order them to kind of understand the maths, but also be able to explain the maths to others.
So we showed you, you've seen the proof of concept that we've developed as part of the STEMReader project, which is about text-to-speech for maths, but also using colour and highlighting and a tree structure to expand notation and equations. How do you think your students could use that in the future?
Well, I think it's multifaceted. I think for sort of like if you're underconfident maths students like your nurses, I think for them the highlighting, the vocabulary they have to say, because it's almost like a foreign language that you have to say. And of course, they've already got vocabulary for drugs in there already. So, you know, anything that helps that. I like the fact from a dyslexia tutor, it's multisensory. So you're seeing it, you're hearing it, you're saying it, you can do it, you can click on things, it's interactive. The mind mapping tree diagram at the bottom, I think, was really useful in terms of reinforcing the actual knowledge of the maths. I think unpacking the maths, I think a lot of students at like a non-specialist maths level, that you wouldn't expect them to have A-level maths, for example, can do the calculation because they know what the method of the calculation is, but they don't necessarily understand what they're doing and why. And I think that the tree diagram was great for that, in terms of you're told to do the brackets bit first and you do it, but you don't really know why you're doing it, you're just doing it because that's the rule. So I think it's really useful for that idea. And I really like the fact that you can change the maths language to the language that makes sense to you. For the people that I support with diverse learning needs, they all learn differently. And it's really important that you catch them early, and because they have a lot of technology to deal with, and if you can catch them early and make it personalised to them, they're much more likely to interact with it. And that's a massive thing that diverse learners, we really believe in, embedding the technology to become a more efficient and effective learner.
And you mentioned many of your students are sort of in courses where they've got workplaces for nurses, the engineers. Do you see from their experience with workplaces how STEMReader could help with the workplace as well?
Oh, absolutely, because at the moment you have, so if you're doing a drugs round, for example, you might have a calculator and a piece of paper and you might check with somebody. But what tends to happen on a drugs round is you have the one person who's competent at doing the maths, doing the drugs round, and then when they're off, everybody kind of takes a step back, you know, somebody's left forward to do the drugs round. So I think in terms of a confidence tool, and also double checking and understanding the maths before checking with somebody else, for example, would be a great tool. It's quite discreet if you could use it on your mobile device. Mobile devices are beginning to be used in trusts in health education now, so I can see that there's definitely going to be less of a barrier of getting those sort of things onto the ward, particularly if it's left on the drugs trolley. Then again, that's one of the areas that they could just have a device that's on the drugs trolley just to check that drug specification. In terms of an engineer, an engineer already takes their iPad into the lab with them and looks at all the stuff that we've done in highlighting and screenshotting and things like that. So for him, that would be great, because then he wouldn't have to do two lots of work. He wouldn't have to do all the prep and the highlighting at home and then take that into the lab with him. He could do the calculations whilst in the lab. And again, gets back to my idea of being more efficient and more effective, and less stress and less anxiety and greater confidence. So for me, it fits all my ethos.
Okay. Well, Kerry, thank you very much, and it's been great to hear about your work at Diverse Learners. That's been really good to hear your feedback on STEMReader. Thank you.
I think they'll love it.